year, and then maybe, gosh, how, is it declining again?
Yeah.
Are we gonna probably shut some of these schools down? Why would we put X amount of dollars, you know, what do you?
Yeah, so here's with that, here's what I would say to that. We wouldn't, the 340 million isn't sold all at once, right? So
Sure.
what we are doing is getting authorization from you to be able to issue up to $340 million fund. There is nothing that says we have to, in 10 years' time, issue $340 million fund, right? So that's one thing that I think is important to look at. The other piece is that's related to timing, right? So, you know, as we continue to pay down old debt that we've had from prior bonds that were
Which is
issued.
how much now, I know I'm interrupting, but how much is left?
It just depends on the bond series. I mean,
There's
there's
5 bond
multiple.
series out there, right?
There's multiple, what?
That's
There's
what I
five, there's 5 bond series that are currently out,
Yeah,
I'm wondering the
and
totals
right now
now,
it's
if we know.
probably
110 million, isn't it?
about 110 million.
So
I think
we're
we
looking
talked
at
about it
raising
in
that to
the
$500 billion.
So as we pay those off, right, then the tax rate goes down, right? That's how that works, right? We levy a tax rate to be able to collect the funds to pay the loan, right? So as you pay off that debt, the tax rate goes down. So following through with what you are suggesting, if we wait, tax rate will go down, and then if you decided, well, now would be a great time, we should do that, tax rates are gonna spike right back up.
Interest rates are going up.
Well, I mean, it's kind of interesting because the cost of money is gonna go up, and if you borrow, your current projections be what they are, but if you borrow the full 300 some odd million dollars, and the cost of money goes up, you reflexively, by law, have to raise the millage to pay for it. That's what the bond says. We're not giving you a millage increase. That's not what we're doing here. We're co-signing the school's loan. And if you borrow that money at a higher cost, higher than is projected, and based on the last 3 years, we can expect that to probably happen, there really is no cap on where the millage goes. Is that a true statement?
Especially if interest rates go up.
Well,
We
bonds are
work-
usually at a
no.
fixed rate.
Yeah.
So
Usually,
we really work hard, and we work with, we have financial advisors, who help us to make sure as when we actually issue the bond series, right? I talked about that we would issue it multiple series. We work to make sure that the year we issue the series and the dollar amount, so that we're not spiking our tax rate, right? And that's why you've been able to see that history that I've shown, from 7.9 mils in 2013 to 6.05 in 2023. That was a piece of it. So as we issued those series with the 2018 authorization, we were very deliberate about when we issued them and for what dollar amount, so that we did not have to raise the tax rate for the community. In fact, we've been able to, reduce it, obviously.
And I mean, that's reassuring that in the past it's worked, but what I just wanna be clear upon is that if you borrow this money and it comes at a higher cost, by necessity, if property values don't go up in commensurate fashion, I mean, we all remember, what was it, 6, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, maybe even more, when property values in this area dropped drastically.
2008.
KDL pled, KDL pled,
2008, yes.
yep,
Yeah.
KDL pled poverty got an increase. You know, we've seen before historically that as interest rates go up, often property values go down because the cost of mortgages are so high.
So here's what I would say to that. We look at that, we wouldn't issue a series. We are not interested in just issuing a series for the sake of issuing a series. So if something is happening in the economy and it tanks again, we aren't, we're gonna pause, we're gonna not start projects, we're gonna wait.
Can we get that in writing?
Yeah.
Well, Scott, I just shared that here's our tax rate, here's what we've been doing.
Right, but
And I'm telling you that that's what we would do, right? We aren't gonna issue a series just to issue the series and start a project. We want to be good stewards, right, to our community. They've given us this authorization. And they gave it to us when we said we're not expecting to increase the tax rate over the current rate.
I mean, I'd love to see that in
Yeah.
writing to reference, I mean,
Like
maybe
half
if
a
we got it in time, but, you know, obviously the millages were much higher in the past, and I could very
So
much.
I think that's what's in writing then, right? That's what we've been doing, that's what Forest Hills Public Schools has been about with our bond issues. We've been about our community's trust and making sure that when we are issuing a bond series, we are making sure that we aren't increasing the tax rate for our community. That's what that history showed you.
So I'm curious, cause I completely don't know, what around the country, what do people typically pay millage wise for bonds and?
You know, every state's different, right? How every state funds capital improvements for schools is completely different.
Like in Michigan? Do you have any, I mean, I don't have any clue.
Rockford?
Well, East Grand Rapids has a bond proposal out there, and their bond that they're requesting is about $150 some million. It's under
So what are
160.
their millages for, in East Grand Rapids for schools?
I don't know what their debt.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, I honestly don't know the answer to that. I don't know
I
what
think the size
everybody's
of
debt
school
tax
district,
rate is.
that's a lot of influence.
Yeah,
East
but
and
the
Rockford are
millage
pretty comparable.
should be-
We have a lot more buildings than other districts
Yeah.
too,
Mhm.
so we're
Yes,
gonna have larger
yeah,
needs.
yeah. All right, well, let's keep going through the proposed projects so you can see, and then we've got a couple other slides here besides the project. So, we have a little bit set aside for the food service facility. We are proposing to add a generator so that when we have power outages, we don't have to, have spoilage or try to move as quickly as possible, the items that are in the freezers and coolers. And we need a little bit of roofing work at that space.
I arrived late. Can I
Oh,
ask a
I'm sorry.
question? No, I arrived late, so this is my fault. With the pool, and this may have already been answered, is this a 50-meter pool?
That's what we're proposing it would be,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
And then the last two items for the proposed project, so over at our transportation center that's located by Central High School, for those of you who don't know, we're proposing $4 million to do a little bit of updating to that facility, and to do some roughing and mechanical work. And then we have a little over $30 million for technology buses and something we call FFE, and that stands for furniture, fixtures, and equipment. So it's really replacing things that are end of their life cycle. All right, so how can the district communicate? We have rules that we have to follow for communicating. So as a district employee, when I'm on duty, I can only communicate factual information. I cannot encourage anybody to vote yes. So that's important, and that holds for every district employee. And we have all of our communication materials reviewed by our legal counsel, so that they're looking for words that may lead, they think may lead some voter to think, oh, they're trying to get me to vote yes with this, just by this one word. So we do have that reviewed by them. But our Board of Education members, they can deliver factual information, and they can also encourage voters to vote yes. Our upcoming presentations, we'll have one more next week, Tuesday, over at Northern High School in that newly renovated area.
So I have two questions. One, in all of those high school buildings, and maybe that's a question for you, is any of that infrastructure update looking at the bathrooms in the high schools? They are disgusting, I have to just be honest. My children do not want to use them.
Which is the one that you're talking about, Central?
Central's was gross. I had two children that went to Central and graduated quite a long time ago, and I have one at Northern. It's the same. I think probably Eastern is the newest building, so obviously they have the newest tile. I think ours was the original tile in those other buildings. Is that being looked at?
I don't recall specifically. I know like, for some of these schools that was restroom by restroom, if the restroom was in good shape, we didn't touch it. If it needed it, we did. You know, do you recall, Julie?
I don't, but part of that would be fleshed out when we start to do the detailed
And
design
then
work.
how do you become, I mean, I know you've had some preliminary stakeholder meetings, but
Mhm.
how do you become a stakeholder if you have a passion about the athletic center? Or if you have a passion about, Northern or Central or whatever? And like, how do you become on the radar of whoever your stakeholder committees are that you would like to participate or be, I mean, open meetings, do you put in a CV, what do you do?
What we were thinking for, I'll speak to the aquatic center and the community aquatic center first. So we were going to use probably a couple different methods to try to get feedback for that, so probably more on the survey side. To do that, and then we would use that information. But we can work with our, schools, to figure out how best to collect feedback, from our school communities on, you know, kind of some of the things they'd like to see.
Because I know like I participate in the high school PTO meeting, which I didn't think I would need to, but there are concerns. And I know that concerns get expressed at those meetings, and then they get escalated, and we have the luxury of having our principal there, and they can only go so far, but then when that falls flat, I feel like there's, and it's an ongoing theme, when I have a 7-year gap between one child to the next, and it's the same issue, and it doesn't seem like it gets any momentum, I don't know at where to go. And obviously you don't escalate and call the superintendent building or whatever of operations or whatever, but it just seems like the communication is hard to get through, to figure out where the stopgaps are. Why doesn't it get escalated? And I know that we added new communication directors in the building to try to help some of that stuff, but it's just hard, cause the whole, it's just hard to know where to go.
Are you talking about just like general day-to-day, like?
Well, not just
or-
general
or
day-to-day,
operating
but
type
like-
things?
The bathroom issue is, I know that's weird, but I have boys, and obviously I have a different mindset of that, but they're bad. And they've been bad for a long time. It's
My-
been discussed multiple times.
My kids have complained about the bathroom too.
For a while there weren't even toilet seats, they had to take
Yep.
them out because they'd be vandalized or.
Right.
I have 5 kids who go to Forest Hill Central.
Yeah.
Not one of them will use the bathroom.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what Eastern's different, but I know Centrals and Northerns have issues.
Is it vandalism? What's going on?
I don't know what's
Vandalism,
wrong.
vaping, other things going on.
This
drugs.
is something I wanna bring up. The drugs are a big deal. With homeschool family, my kid's been told numerous times when people find out he lives in Forest Hills, do you go to the crazy parties?
Well, that's everywhere.
No,
I mean,
no,
everywhere.
it's beyond, cause these kids live in other districts.
Yeah, but
And
it's
they're
in every
commenting about,
district.
they're commenting about drugs, there are kids in the district coming to us from junior high, middle school level, telling us what's going on. It's intense, so I know this is a different
So I can
conversation,
appreciate that, and we'll certainly take it back and have conversations with our principals. I really wanna keep our focus
Sure.
in on the 2
No, I
items
hear
that
you.
are on the November ballot, so.
Julie, let me ask you this question, and this is a forecast question.